You've found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic. To bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotec and Bill Protzmann. And good morning, everybody, on this Election Day 2020. Oh, my holy Lord. Wow. Welcome to the crazy and, hey, co-host John Krotec out in Florida. California is still waking up. How are you, buddy?
Doing great. Florida's wide awake. It was mid 50s or almost 60 degrees this morning. So it's a little bit chillier, but yeah, election day. People are excited. It's it has been quite the year, and so excited to have Victor here with us too. So
take a deep breath. So on AHO this month, November, it turns out that we have some pretty interesting guests queued up. So if you're watching this way in the future, it is November 2020. And I'm really proud of this month, how it's shaped up, John, because oftentimes we try to organize big programs or whatever, or significant guests. And this month we have significant guests who are doing real work in the real world in really important ways, but in ways that, the media doesn't necessarily know about. And Victor is one of those people. And I've had the pleasure of knowing Victor now for a number of years. We met at a Toastmasters club or a Rotary club or something like that ages ago. And I've learned a lot about the walk that Victor has in his life. And so let's just start there and welcome you. Victor Svistoonoff, welcome to AHO Radio, man. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, it's been a few years. I still have the email that I was queuing back the emails, trying to find the address, and I saw an email, the very first email that we had sent to one another back in 2014.
There you
go.
So
that was 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite a 6-year ride, man.
Right.
I was thinking about this morning, my dad, who died in the wool Midwesterner, voted in every election until the last one before he passed away in 2018. He didn't vote. And I'm like, Dad, how come? And it's been that kind of a 6 years, like
Mm-hmm.
people are going, what's up now? What's happening now? So dude.
Well, people have their own reasons for not voting. I personally look at the vote, this is election day, and I look at the vote as really a privilege, and an honor.
Sure. Yeah.
And people have their reasons. We can't point the fingers and pass judgment, but a lot of people have died and sacrificed, for something much greater than us here in America. And that vote is wholly important to this nation as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly. Sorry, we're stepping all over you, Victor. So
no, sorry.
No.
Jumping in here.
No. I was just going to add to what John had to say was that, it's true that people have, died for the opportunity to vote. On the flip side, though, if you look at the way the system is set up right now, it's, in California, it's pretty much a done deal.
We don't have
local propositions. I definitely agree with you on the sense of you can make a difference. On the much broader realm, it doesn't matter if I go, Republican, Democrat, or a third party. It's pretty much it's a done vote.
Yeah. California goes Democrat, and nothing we can do. We're not a swing.
Right. If all of California decide to move to Florida, that might actually make an impact. But,
so look out, John. Here we come.
but think of a voter in a state like mine where it does make a difference.
Yeah. Florida, Pennsylvania, the battleground states.
Yeah. And again, I don't know. I have a sense that if I forego my vote, that sacrifice of that person or that family that, maybe, lost a loved one in the defense of this great nation, especially during World War II, which I know your dad was involved with, to me, it's like just throwing away that life. And I personally can't do that, for personal convictions, because. And if somebody doesn't want to vote, they can do that. They have that right. And so I can't say either way.
So what, like 90 million of us have already voted?
They said that 94 million.
That's huge, man.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the big problems is that you have all these people voting, and everyone is thinking that my candidate is going to be the one that wins. And so people get very defensive about things. It would be great if people could go vote and make it such a quiet thing where it's a non-issue. They just go quietly to vote and just leave it at that. But rather, you hear all these things on, people running down the streets, with their little stickers saying I voted. I mean, it's not a big deal to go out and vote. In fact, if anything, it should be something very quiet that each person should do on their quiet time. There shouldn't be all this polling. There shouldn't be all the hoopla that's going on. It really should be something very personal.
So Victor, this is one of the reasons I love you, man, because your practice, your daily walk is just this consistent, powerful, quiet, directional thing. And I guess my biggest question for you today is, as someone who practices that way of life, how do you personally offer compassion to all the people who are putting it out there and who are so scared and vulnerable right now? How does that work for Victor Svistoonoff?
Well, I mean, I'm no better than anyone else. So, I mean, obviously compassion is something that, you have to look deep inside of yourself. I think we talked a lot yesterday about vulnerability and about how you really have to get in contact with your own vulnerabilities to really say, okay, how different is this person than I am? And is there any way that I can connect with them on a level that is not going to demean where they're at? Because I think that's the big problem, is that, in this day and age, and it's all over the world. It's not just in America. I want to say every single country, people have this kind of thing on their shoulder that my voice is the only voice that matters, or nobody knows what I'm going through. And it's been a recent phenomenon. And I think we have to get in contact with, we have to connect, or better be able to connect with people at a much simpler level.
So you're talking about even, what's the success formula now for internet-based businesses to be the loudest?
Right.
And it's pretty easy to be loud, but when you open the hood and look underneath and you find that there's no there, what is there is still a human being.
Right.
Trying to do what they need to do to put food on the table and roof over their head, or they're already wildly successful and they're trying to do that bigger. And in either case, then, so how do you offer your compassion in a way that is meaningful to that other person? Like, how do you get into that place? Does that make sense, John? Am I asking the right question?
No. Well, I liken it to people that love American football. And Victor
right.
He might like, the San Francisco 49ers, and I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we could go to fisticuffs over who's the best quarterback, who made the best play, who's the best running back. Right. Oh, do you remember that game 5 years ago? And you're still bugged about it. And in these fisticuffs and in this dissension, we lose sight of the fact that we both love American football.
Exactly.
So, if we love America, and I think this is what Victor's heading for. I mean, I'm hearing it. If you love America, find out what the core connections are with each other, and try to, I think that's where the compassion comes from, Bill, is it comes from the authentic feelings that we have about the subjects that we're engaged in. And if I lose respect for Victor, and I'm not listening to what he has to say about who his political candidate is, then I become part of the problem.
Good observation.
Think both sides have to be willing to discuss in an authentic, vulnerable way. Thank you, Victor, for pointing that out. That doesn't create or add, and I heard Victor say this, add to the noise. I don't want to add to the noise. I want to be an American. I want to be able to have a discussion with another American, and we may not agree, but one thing we can agree on is that America is awesome. I think that's where the compassion starts.
Well, and I think you used a good example of football, because I think you could turn on any sports program, and you see green, you see red, and all of a sudden there's something within the nature of the individual that says, "Hey, I don't even know which team this is, but I'm voting green. I'm voting red."
Right. So there's like this
And
pull toward making a choice.
right, and I think that's where we have to watch ourselves. We have to be cautious about how far are we going down this rabbit hole of division, and saying, "Hey, I'm taking sides, and my side is the right side." Well, like John was saying, we have to understand that, hey, both of us like football, and there's a sport, and just as much as one team has an advantage, there's another team out there, and we should be rooting for, not, obviously we want our team to win, but we cannot have so much division that it's at all expenses for our team to win. And I think that's where it's gotten to. It's no longer camaraderie. There's no more love between one another to say, hey, we can respect the whole process. We can respect the whole game. We can enjoy the whole game. And it doesn't matter if I'm going for green or red. Green fights just as strong as red does.
I remember watching a hockey game last time the Kings were in the World Series, the World Cup. Hello, people. Yeah, I'm a sports ball guy, the Stanley Cup.
I got you.
And they were playing, I don't know, a team from Canada. It was an amazing game. And I was watching on the internet, like with slow Wi-Fi and stuff like that. So I could kind of catch what was going on, but the audio was solid. And I think the Kings won, but I felt such a privilege to be able to watch this game because it was so skillful. And, there were fights and stuff like that. And, it doesn't really change it for me that the Kings were ultimately the winners, because it was like a cliffhanger and both teams were just amazing, John, like you're saying. And I just felt like I'd participated in something momentous at that moment, to be a part of that is just as an observer. And,
and at the end of the day, as Victor pointed out, at the end of the day, both teams skate by each other and they shake hands. And even though they wanted to kill each other 10 minutes earlier, they're still, the mask is off the goalie and the gloves are off and the sticks are over there and, on the side of the ice. And same thing with football. The helmets are off. They're all out there shaking hands and they're telling the coaching staffs, we love you and yada, yada, yada. And that's what we, as Victor points out, and as you say, Bill, that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah, play hard and celebrate the the game, and then go on to the next one.
And the internet makes it difficult. We know this, right?
The internet likes to excite us. So how do we stay immune, Victor? How do you deal with fear of someone who's just in just now or in 5 days or whatever? What's the answer?
Turn it off. I mean,
good answer.
That's what it comes down to, is just literally turning it off, just stopping from participating in it.
And it's your family or
active
a friend?
Stopping. I mean, not necessarily deactivating, but actively stopping and saying, hey, wherever I'm going to be, I'm going to give 100% of who I am to that situation. And I'm not going to be down, constantly checking my phone. I'm not going to be, my mind is not going to be somewhere where I'm not already at. And I think that's one of the big problems, is that we're so consumed with media. We have all these interruptions that we can never be in the moment. So when I say just turn it off, it really means just be in the present of wherever you're at. And the big problem is that when we look online, and I'm just as guilty as anyone else, I'll look at the news and then that'll send me down, a thing of looking at other news and other sources. And all of a sudden I find myself looking up things that I don't even know how I got into,
Yeah.
And so I think that's the big problem, is that we can never, I think before, without a lot of technological gadgets, we were able to actually be in the moment a lot better.
Because there wasn't so much pulling us away.
Right. And there wasn't this it is a type of addiction, just as addictive as alcohol and cigarettes. And I do believe that in the next couple of years, they will find that, down the road, Apple or Samsung will sell their cell phones, and there'll be a disclaimer saying this product may cause irreversible personality disorders or mental health issues.
Internet personality disorder.
Exactly.
Well, probably the three wisest words of the 21st century is what you said: turn it off. Because when we're constantly bombarded by narratives and by opinions, it's been said that it creates a kind of unreality. And the humans who are striving at a core level to find the authenticity in their lives, a world of smoke and mirrors creates this sense of, what's real anymore? And don't we all kind of want to be real? I mean, isn't that important to our own survival as a human being? I want to be Victor. I want to be John. I want to be Bill,
And the big problem with that, when we hear all these opinions, all of a sudden we're making opinions on topics that we never even had an opinion on, just because of the fact that we've heard multiple people voice out an opinion, and we say, yeah, that person is right.
Yep.
And it's crazy.
No, but you hit the nail on the head, though. It is an addiction because, the scientists have figured out, as the advertisers have, that dopamine spikes are like the technological crack of the modern age. And even the people who've developed these platforms have come out recently and said that they smoke and joke about it. That wasn't the intent, but that's what it's become. And you're so right, Victor. You're right, man.
Well, I think with a lot of technology, and we're not just talking about the internet, everything that is being created, there are a lot of things in the world that are great tools, but yet there's something within the nature of the human personality that takes that tool and exploits it to a level that all of a sudden it's being used for something that it was never intended to be used for.
Right.
And so there is nothing wrong with the internet. There's nothing wrong with social media. I really do believe Facebook and Twitter and all these companies really genuinely did have the best intention. And I still believe they do have the best intention. The big problem is how it's being manipulated, and how it's able to hit that area of human behavior that basically says, hey, I have to be the center of the universe. I have to be the world. And that's the big problem.
So have we lost a sense, Victor? Do you think we've lost a sense of our humanity?
Yeah.
It's hard to touch humanity anymore. The walls are up. And getting through, it seems to me, perspective on the world, with so many people so fearful, that seems like the doorway to vulnerability. How do we touch humanity in this moment of, worldwide angst in a way that is sustainable, instead of just poking the knife,
Right. And I think that's the hard thing, is humanity has shifted, and a lot of it is being pushed by this idea that we only have a few seconds. We're only listening to bites of people.
Fear of missing out, and
fear of missing out, fear of we need to be heard immediately. We need to be a headliner in everything we say and do. And so people put these crazy opinions and crazy things that seem to be facts, which are just, false news or false facts. And they say that's the truth, when it isn't.
So how do you know what's real, man? Like you personally, how do you evaluate what's true?
Like I said, for me, I always, what I try to do is I spend a little bit of time. I try to walk every day, and at the time I'm walking, I tried to really tune off. I walk about an hour and a half every day, and for me, that's my meditating time, where I can just get back down to me and say, hey, you know what? I got an hour and a half. I've got that time to just think, just focus on, okay, what's my purpose? What am I doing? What's my plan for tomorrow? What did I do in the past that was a mistake? How can I improve on that in the future? All these things that, there's so many different ways of meditation in the world. Each person finds what's really right for them. And I think that's the thing, is that in each one of our lives, we need to have that downtime to say, hey, I'm getting back to what I'm all about and who I'm all about. And in this day and age, there's way too many distractions and opportunities for distraction that we have grown accustomed to, that most people feel like, oh, I can't spend an hour and a half, or I can't spend 5 minutes even away from being connected to people.
That's some great points there. So you're saying, Victor, like you exercise a daily reset button. And, in that meditation, there's a reason meditation, I guess, has been around 4,000 plus years, that, it's a reconnect, if you will. And I personally think that it's also, and you alluded to it, a little bit of human reconnectivity in person as well.
Right.
We've been under this lockdown for so long. I think that I think it's affected people's psyches in a huge way, and it's kind of added to the noise as well. More of a disconnection. And we have this existence, and we all have these journeys. And I think that Bill has alluded to it. When we become compassionate with ourselves first, like you were just saying, what can I do better? What can I do better? How can I do better?
Like
not
me.
necessarily right. And working on yourself, which you just pointed out, which is awesome. I think that's the beginning of truly the path of comfort or serenity or success, is to take care of yourself first, and then the chips will fall into place.
Right. And it doesn't seem like we have this for a lot of people, they don't have the skill set. They don't know people. They don't know where to go to do something as easy and as simple as turning things off and saying, I'm turning it off. Because everywhere that they're exposed to, people are constantly on 24/7. And that's where it is possible to actually detach. It's funny, because I was talking with a buddy of mine who's an abbot of a Trappist monastery up in Northern California. And he was telling me that with this whole pandemic, now everyone around the world is getting a taste of what it's like to live the monastic life. And you can choose to live a monastic life where you get back down to, or you could go crazy being in your home all day long, and not having, feeling all this stress based on all the news and all the internet and everything that they're being told to you, where it could drive you insane. Or you could find serenity and peace within the whole process of being on a type of lockdown. And I think that's our choice. More so than even voting, our choice is, do we want to be a part of the irrational fears out there, or do we want to find calmness within ourselves? And I think
powerful stuff.
I think the answer is yes, we can. I think that's where this whole pandemic is a great thing, because it's allowing people the real opportunity, the real option to say, hey, I don't have to go out there. I don't have to do all these things. I don't have to constantly be, escaping. I have to deal with me. And as soon as you start dealing with me, that's the beginning of real growth.
Yeah. Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, which has been translated in all these different languages, and very old book, I think 35 or 2,500 years old. We've heard the cliche, the eye of the storm, and that comfort in all that chaos chaos or that calmness is the centering that you're talking about, Victor. Placing the moment on the self and not being affected by all the turmoil that's all around. Now, it's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. We're human, but the constant repetition of you doing that daily reset button, and you enjoy that hour and a half of personal time with Victor. I think that you're outlining something that's extremely important to all of us. Center yourself, look at yourself, live in the moment. Can't change yesterday. Tomorrow hasn't come yet. What can we do to appreciate the serenity that we can create right now?
So can we break this down a little bit? Like, Victor, your personal guide for someone who's a newbie, like who's caught up in fear and angst and all of that. How would you address someone like that who says, hey, dude, I got to change something here? What would you tell someone like that to do? Like as a step 1, 2, 3 kind of thing?
Step 1, slow down. No matter what you're doing. And I get it that certain people in high-powered jobs and very stressful situations, and they've got a lot of things. Everyone understands the idea of slowing down just a bit, whether it be 1 minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Slow down and just appreciate the whole process of what you're doing and where you're going. I'm making
notes, dude. This is great.
I think that's the big thing. People they say, oh, I'm so stressed. I'm going crazy. I don't know what. Well, no, even in the moments, if I were to look, at your life, I could say, okay, Bill, when he's doing this, he's doing that. He's not even slowing down to say, hey, let me give it an extra couple minutes to enjoy what the process is. And if you can enjoy the process of wherever you are, or even whatever stressful situation you're in, that's the beginning. Because then you can take that on a much greater level and say, hey, I'm going to slow down on my work. I'm going to slow down with my kids. I'm going to slow down with driving. I'm going to slow down. It's pervasive in all aspects of one's personality.
So step 1, I got slow down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you lined it out too, Bill, that it's a process.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight. And
no,
if you are repetitive and you practice enough, you become part of the process, and the process airs it out. It becomes a journey of hopefully improvement.
So after I've slowed down, what are my expectations?
Well, I think that's the big thing. We're led with these expectations that all of a sudden, 20-day process, and you'll be 20 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
And it's not reality. You're going to make mistakes constantly. You're going to go back to being angst. But as long as you can recognize that, hey, you've got this stress, you've got this thing, and you're trying, you're not always going to be successful, but you're going to try on it. To focus on things in the here and now. That way, you're not whipping yourself and saying, I should be at a place that I'm not. You just look at it as an opportunity at the end of the day to say, you know what, I messed up on this. I think I can do better tomorrow. Or maybe not be so hard on yourself and to say, hey, I'm going to look at it as another experiment of what can I do the next time it comes around. And just leave it at that. And I think the thing is that we put so much false sense of we need to be perfect from the get-go, where we think that, oh, all of a sudden I'm enlightened, so I should be this perfect human being, and I should be patient, and I should be, I should let go of the stress. No, that's not right. But just try to give yourself an option to say, hey, this is an experiment. That's all I'm doing. We're living in a giant petri dish where it's really we're looking at our own personality, and we're saying, hey, if I were to do this, what would be the result? And we should look at the whole process as just one giant lab experiment and say, hey, that type of stimuli gives me this kind of result.
Can you give us an example, like a personal life example?
I mean, yeah. I mean, a couple years ago, I was working in the corporate world, and just, every single day I would go to work. I would get stressed out because no matter what I did, my my boss just absolutely despised, just had a thing for me.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where even when I would come home at night, I'd be working and try to explain everything I was doing to him. I did everything. I'd come home, and it would still be haunting my mind, where I could never let go. And eventually, it led to a point where I said, "Hey, I don't know how to handle this." During the weekends, it wasn't as if though I was really genuinely enjoying my weekends. I was looking for an out. I was looking for an escape, some kind of, going out, getting drunk, doing whatever, in order to forget a week, knowing that on Sunday I had to do it all over again. So it's like you're escaping to escape, and you're still chained to what you're doing. And it took me a long, long time till I finally realized, hey, I've got to add something more to our lives, to my life. And so I started working at a food shelter, and I realized that what I needed to do was I needed to get out of that whole cycle of thinking in terms of in terms of feeling that there was no escape. I needed to get out of having this person and this job remain to be an addictive type of part of me, where I would not let it go. And slowly, gradually, by working at the soup kitchen, I realized that I could let go. And just for that 1 hour of time a week that I was there, I genuinely just was able to let go. And it was a great feeling. And from that whole process, I realized there was an escape, or there was a genuine out, not even an escape, but an out, that I could say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. And after that, I said, hey, it doesn't matter if I'm working at 7-Eleven for the rest of my life. I'm not going to go back to that. I'm not going to go back to living in that environment. So, that was my experience. Everyone else has a different experience, and I get it. There are a lot of single parents out there. There are a lot of people who work 60, 80 hours a week, and they have different types of stresses. But I think there is, even no matter how many stressors there is a moment during the day that you can look and ask yourself, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Can I do better tomorrow?
So I've heard you say so far, first step, slow down. The second step is treat it like an experiment. Be willing to make mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah.
What's the third step then?
Well, let me just real quick. I've heard a couple of things too. I've heard desire to change, and I've heard repetition. And I've heard repetition leads to creating new habits and new behaviors and new beliefs. So, with the two that you just said, Bill, we'll add those in: the desire to change and repetition, creating new habits. I think that's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're now you've slowed down, and you've been willing to experiment, and your desire to change is sort of leading you here. It's like an energy pulling you forward, and the new habits you're learning are starting to sustain you. So at that place, what happens?
And I think once you figure out that the way you've reacted or you've responded to things can be changed, then you can look even beyond what you do, what you've done, and you can look into the future and say, wow, I've got all the options. I've got more possibilities. I look forward to more experiences and more varied experiences where I have the opportunity to really shine, to allow those areas that I have worked at to be in other areas of my life.
So instead of that anxious future, you have a much more positive future.
A positive future future where you look forward to anything that comes about, because you have a skill that you have developed within yourself that you can take in other scenarios. So it's not just the situations that you've been having to deal with in the past, whether it be with your kids, whether it be at your work, whether it be in traffic, but it's the new situations, the new person you meet, the unexpected visitor that you don't know where they're coming from, whether that visitor be an actual person or an experience, that you can say, hey, I've got a new skill set that I can add to that, to see whether I can experiment with that.
Well, you've empowered yourself, and you fully understand now that you have the power to choose, and that's probably one of the greatest revelations that we could, that process that you just described, Victor, leads to the road of knowing that I can choose how to act the next time something comes around. Right. And that, if people just understood, I love how you gave us the example. If people just understood that you have the power to choose how you react and behave to a certain stimulus, I think that's brilliant, man. That's pretty cool.
But everyone can say that they have the option, but in actuality, they really have to look back at their own life and say, how am I changing what I already have? Or how am I changing my response to those things that are already in my life? Because right. if you're not flexible enough to recognize that you need to be able to change, you will not have the option to change in the future, because it's a false option.
Say that again. That's an important point, and I want to make sure it's clear.
It's a great point.
It's a false option to say, well, I can do anything, I can be anything. It's the equivalent of someone who's always eaten very unhealthy foods, and all of a sudden they wake up one day and say, well, I can run a marathon if I want. Well, maybe you can, but it's going to take some changing in your person, in how you look at your unhealthy eating habits, to have a genuine change. Because otherwise, you're going to try to run, you're going to try to exercise, but you're going to go back to those comfort foods that are going to feel so good. So what you have to do is you have to go back in order to look at yourself and say, I really do have the option to change. And change what you can change. And I'm not saying change takes a while, oftentimes, until one's personality feels like, wow, I can see the difference. I can physically see the difference in what I did, how I evolved. And now, looking forward, now I really do have an option, because I have the tools and the skill sets where when another situation happens, I won't fall into that same rabbit hole.
Can I ask for an example on that from your life? Because I think I'm grasping this, but I just want to make sure. The idea I got is like personal reflection is a part of this going forward change, and like looking back offers you ways that you didn't know you could change. Help me understand how that works.
Okay, so I'll give you a good example. I had an irrational fear for several years of dogs. I just did not, and even though I would say, oh, I don't have a fear of dogs. I can, any dog that comes around, I should be able to deal with. I realized with my fear of dogs that several years ago, I ended up going to India. And when I was there in India, I rented a flat in close to Dharamsala. And the flat I was renting for 6 weeks, there were two giant dogs that would come they would sit right in front of
the universe gifted you. Yeah,
exactly. They gifted me these two big dogs, and these two big dogs they were kind of threatening looking. And what ended up happening is that during the course of the 6-week period of time, I would see the dogs, I'd get really fearful. And all of a sudden, I remember going to the store and thinking, you know what? Why don't I try to befriend these dogs? So I bought them an extra thing of biscuits, I think. And all of a sudden, I'm coming to my door and they're kind of snarling at me. And I give them the biscuits and they ate them up. And they went their side and I kind of beelined right into my door. And day by day, they actually started to befriend me. And I remember coming back to my place and they weren't there. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what happened to the two dogs? What happened to them? It was like something in me started feeling this. Did they get hurt? Did they get hit? Did they get run over by a car? They inevitably came back and they were, of course, looking for their biscuits. And every night, by the end, I was going to the store. I was buying myself something and buying them a couple biscuits. And I realized that whole process, what I was doing was I was dealing on my own terms with how to get past my own fears. Now I can look forward into the future and say, hey, if I deal with a dog, I'm not automatically going to tense up. Yeah, there's part of me that still feels a little fear, which is irrational, but I recognize that it's an irrational fear. And I recognize that I've been able to deal with that fear in the past by turning that fear into a type of relationship, into a type of friendship. And from now, I look at it and I say, if I deal with a dog, I don't have that same, that tensed up feeling that sometimes we get when we have a fear of something, an irrational fear of something. There still is a little bit of that, but I know that I've been able to conquer that fear. I've been able to move to the next level. And because I've been able to move to the next level, I know in the future, if I were to deal with another dog like that, it wouldn't be as bad as it was in my mind from before.
So did you leave a note for the next tenant and say, hey, the dogs are friendly, but you got to feed them biscuits?
No.
Those dogs have it made, man. 6 weeks, every 6 weeks, we train a new human being how to give us biscuits.
But the summer I went to go visit a buddy of mine who's been isolating by himself in Spokane. And when I went to visit him, he had a dog and I totally fell in love with his dog. I mean, I don't know necessarily if I will get a dog of my own, but I truly loved his dog. And I remember even leaving his house thinking, man, if my friend ever dies, give me the dog.
No, that's a great story because, I mean, at a deeper level, you embrace the fear. I remember climbing mountains and I asked the mountain guide, my first mountain, because I was scared to death. I said, what could keep me from getting to the top? And he was very succinct: fear. Mm-hmm. He said, you're going to have to overcome all of those things that you are worried about if you're ever going to get to the top of that mountain. And it's the same thing with the dogs. That's a great story, Victor, because you embraced the fear. You had a desire to change. You had a desire to embrace this fear. And you practiced, you were repetitive with the biscuit story, or giving them biscuits every day. And something very interesting, if people caught on to that, you developed a love, maybe not a love, but you had a compassion and a real heartfelt feeling for these dogs when you didn't see them there that day.
Right.
So that's an interesting thing that you just outlined, because if you embrace your fear, maybe it creates a sense of compassion. Like, I'm scared of Asian people, or Black people freak me out, or, Democrats or Republicans really make me feel weird, and maybe we can take that same fear that we have of animals,
right,
and kind of like scoot it over to the fear of the humans.
And I think that's where a society has gone wrong, is the sense that rather than face our fears, like you said, John, we need to really stop ghosting people and say, let's really appreciate the diversity. Let's listen to what other people have to say. Even if they are if we don't believe what they do, or even if their ideas and their opinions are different than who we are, We have to embrace them rather than, oh, we're going to stay in these little echo chambers where the only people we ever want to hear from is the people who believe us 100% of the time.
I'm listening to your story and just wishing that there was some sort of a process that before you clicked the friend button, you had to go through the same kind of process that you did with the dogs in Dharamsala. And, wouldn't that change the nature of friendship? At least digital friendship, I guess, maybe is a better way of saying.
Well, and a lot of things that we're pointing out is and you just hit the nail on the head, Victor. We've lost the sense of intuition for this human connectedness. And when everything is so digital, like you just pointed out, Bill, we lose that sense of humanity.
So what you're saying is,
it's easier to ghost.
The click thing, there's no investment in clicking.
Right.
But there's like an actual human investment in like learning to bring the dogs biscuits. If you go through that process, at the end of the day, you've got a genuine connection there.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem with our educational system. We're educating people on subjects, but we're not educating people on how to connect.
Yes.
And we're not, as a society, as teachers need to kind of be examples of, hey, how do we learn to connect with people, and how do we make our environment one in which the kids that are fearful, or they learn to become good friends of one another.
Great point.
And I think that's the big problem that is not being pushed. And that's one of the negatives that I see with this whole pandemic, is that we are pushing people to become more and more isolated rather than to say, hey, okay, we get that you feel uncomfortable around this person, but we're going to make it a point that you become their best friend. We're going to make it a point that all of a sudden you expand behind what we could see as a personality flaw,
So yeah. I think we're at a place right now where I've got to take the lead. You gave me a great carrot here. So Victor, in the world that you live in, and with all of what you've explained to us here and shared with us, how do you function professionally in the world, and who are the people that you touch in your day-to-day in the work that you do?
So I really try to I try to get exposure to a lot of different types of people with a lot of different opinions. And I don't like to just have friends who think the same way as I do, in the sense that some of my best friends are both very conservative and very, very liberal minded. Some of them are very young and some of them are very old. I like to get friends of all different age groups, of all different backgrounds, just because it gives me an idea of, okay, to me, it's almost like a personal challenge of, okay, how do I connect with this person on their terms? Because that's what I really want to understand. I want to understand how to get along, not on my terms. I will figure out my terms on, down the road. I want to figure out how to connect with them on their terms,
Yeah.
And
you just spelled it out. To be authentically human, you have to be open-minded, because if you're not open-minded, you shut people out. And if you shut people out, you are going to isolate, and the clicks are not going to solve all the human problems. I think a kiss, a handshake, a real conversation, an eye to eye, a phone call is a lot more than a click. And something that you pointed out in the conversation, Victor, that really stuck with me was about why people do things outrageous in social media, to get a like, which Bill just pointed out. And sometimes if you understand that, some of the things that people are saying that you might think are really outrageous, it might give you a different perspective, realizing that they're just trying to get that artificial like, or maybe it's a real like, and think maybe you'll do something a little bit different next time. And yeah, you have a great plan, man. I tell you, it's working for you. And if people listen to what Victor's saying today and take some of it to heart, there's no way in heck that you can't change your life for the best. Seriously.
Well, I mean, even for me, I recognize that, I still have a lot of continued work to do. It's not a thing of, oh, you get to this level and all of a sudden you are,
The guru. Yeah.
the guru, or you're enlightened more than anyone else. I just continuously like to challenge myself and to say, okay, how can I get to understanding what it is to like the things that I can connect with John or with Bill or someone that I've never, I know very little about. How is it that we can connect on one topic or something? And that's what I want to be able to. I think, and that's what we should all be looking towards, even now going towards this election. How do we connect as people? How do we genuinely connect? Where we're not saying, oh, we're the 95% that likes this candidate or the 95% that likes the other candidate. We should be looking at each other saying, how do I connect with you, void of all those issues, all those political issues or whatever we want to. I want to know what makes us still close friends, not just friends, but brothers.
Yes. Well said.
Well, your humility is admirable. So, thank you for that. I know that this conversation, I'm truly blessed to get your words of wisdom. And, it's the reason why we have this show, right, Bill? Because we want to talk about things like, authenticity and vulnerability and how people can create a positive impetus in their lives. And you're definitely a guy that that can influence in a good positive way. So thanks for your time.
Absolutely, Victor. Thank you. This is we got words of wisdom here, folks. Yeah. Words of wisdom. Yeah, I'm taking a deep breath.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's always an opportunity, I think one of the things I think all of us need to get to know better, and it's something that I'm always trying to retool in my head, is no matter who I'm with and what the situation is, I want that person to know that they're the most important person that I'm dealing with. So whether I'm with you, Bill, whether I'm with John, I want them to know that you're my best friend right now. And it's not whoever's right in front of us is the most important person. They're not just John, some guy in Florida. No, he is the president to me. He is, we should have each person as, the most important person,
Awesome insight. That's wonderful, because that in and of itself, people are important, and you're important to me. I can't think of a better human way of interacting than what you just spelled out. And that's freaking profound, man, because if everybody felt the way you did, Victor, the world would be a much sweeter place. So kudos to you, man, for placing that out there in the universe and making me learn something today. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, I'm excited for the next conversation. And it's been a lot. We could probably talk for a long time.
Victor, thank you. This has been, well, let me just say it this way. Thank you for your friendship. I understand so much more now,
thank you.
About what's behind it. And that as a model is so inspiring to me. So truly, thank you. And thank you for taking the time with me and with John on election day. It's, I mean, what other kind of conversation should we be having right now at this fractious moment in history, but one about what makes a true friend? What's that line? There's a song, "You ain't never had a friend," right from
or unifying moment. Doesn't have to be fractious. It could be unifying.
It could, well, and for us it is. You know, for us here it is on AHO Radio. It's unifying. Definitely, you guys. I'm
Love
just,
you guys.
As always, love you, John. Thank you for being here. Love you, Victor. Thank you for taking some time. For all of you who are listening, thank you for your time. And as always, thank you to our sponsors, Green Zone Hero, Music Care. All about authenticity. Couldn't do this without you. Be well, everybody.
And in the words of Victor,
thank you.
You are really special people. Thank you for listening.
Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected. And as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO. AHO.
Okay. See you guys.